हाँ हाँ हाँ, ठीक है ठीक है ठीक। Hello everyone and welcome to another live session on GK. Today the topic we are dealing with is physical geography. So before beginning, let me tell you that the literal meaning of this word geography is इसका मतलब होता है measurement and geo means earth. तो जो बात रियलाइज करने की है वो ये कि ह्यूमन काइंड वॉज नॉट ऑलवेज अवेयर ऑफ द शेप ऑफ अर्थ और किस तरह से सन के चारों अराउंड अर्थ घूम रही है, ये भी पूरे वर्ल्ड में या फिर स्पेसिफिकली वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड में 15th सेंचुरी तक नहीं पता था, जिसको जानने का टाइम तब आया व्हेन कोपरनिकन revolution happened. Copernican, that is to do with Nicholas Copernicus, जिसने मेजरमेंट्स की, जिसने ऑब्जर्वेशंस की और बताया कि इट इज नॉट द अर्थ अराउंड विच ऑल अदर प्लैनेटरी बॉडीज आर मूविंग, rather it is the sun around which earth and other planets move. And also there was contribution of Galileo, जिसका नाम हम सब ने सुना होगा, the inventor of telescope. And what do we mean by physical geography? तो जब भी हम किसी कंट्री का या किसी कॉन्टिनेंट का मैप देखें तो उसमें दो तरह के मैप्स जनरली आप एटलस में पाएंगे. एक होगा पॉलिटिकल मैप, जो कि पॉलिटिकल बाउंड्रीज को डिफाइन कर रही होती हैं. दीज आर नॉट नेचुरल बाउंड्रीज, नॉट मेड बाय द नेचर. व्हाट इज मेड बाय द नेचर आर द फिजिकल बाउंड्रीज व्हिच इंक्लूड माउंटेन्स, rivers, plateaus, rift valleys, and a very important development having to do with rift valleys is the separation of Africa into two parts, जिसके कारण रिसेंटली आपने न्यूज सुनी होगी कि महाराष्ट्र, गोवा, जितने भी वेस्टर्न कोस्टल स्टेट्स हैं वहां पे आइस एज जैसी सिचुएशन क्रिएट हो जाएगी इन द कमिंग 1000 years. So this is a brief meaning, brief introduction to what physical geography is going to deal with. So let us move ahead now and see what is the scope of geography and why is it that we study geography. So there is this quote by T.S. Eliot which reads, "We shall not cease from exploration, and at the end of all our exploring, all our quest of trying to know, it will be to arrive where we started and know this place for the first time." यानी कि जहां भी हम रह रहे हैं वहां का क्लाइमेट किन चीजों से अफेक्ट होता है और वहां की लाइफस्टाइल किन चीजों से अफेक्ट होती है, ये सारी चीजें हम तब समझ सकते हैं जब हम अर्थ के इंटरकनेक्टेड सिस्टम्स को समझ पाएं, which forms part of physical geography. The scope of geography to know more about the world we live in. जैसे कि हम सब जानते हैं कि natural hazards around rivers, they exist. Every year there are floods, but still people continue living in those floodplains. There's a very specific reason. Despite floods occurring every year, people still choose to live there. The reason is that agriculture is possible only in these floodplains, and that is why people live there. Then it is about the natural environment. अभी आज के टाइम पे दुनिया की सबसे प्रेसिंग प्रॉब्लम, द क्राइसिस every human is dealing with is climate change. Climate change, change in the average weather conditions of any place is what we know as climate change. So this quote, if you read it, you will realize that there are many parts of the earth which, because of human activities, are now as desolate as the surface of moon. Moon जहां पे कोई भी नेचुरल एटमॉस्फेयर नहीं है और इसीलिए लाइफ वहां पे पॉसिबल नहीं है, तो मून के जैसा कन्वर्ट कर दिया ह्यूमन एक्टिविटीज ने बहुत सारी जगहों पे अर्थ पे. And so if we are to prevent earth from becoming a desolate rock like the moon, then we must know, we must understand that what are the processes that govern the entire earth's climate. So to be precise, इसको एक definition में बांधने की कोशिश करें, then it is about physical geography is all about the interactions between earth's climate systems. Somewhere it is cold, for example in the Siberian region temperatures can go up to minus 50 degrees Celsius, minus 50, frozen lands. Whereas in a place like Delhi, temperatures can go up to plus 50 degrees. Then landscape, mountainous regions, even though they are situated not in the higher latitudes, still the temperatures and the vegetation these places have is very similar to what we would witness in the higher latitudes. तो ऐसा भी इसलिए है because altitude, there's a rule in geography which says altitude or height. Altitude mimics or copies latitude. What does it mean? Altitude mimics latitude. It means as you go up a mountain, the change in temperature is similar to what you would witness as you would move from one latitude to the other going up. Then it is highly relevant for society and the topics studied that affect our lives daily. For example, food availability. Now these days you would have, if anybody goes out to buy vegetables, you would know that tomatoes have become expensive. The reason is the extreme fluctuation in temperatures and rainfall, which lead to a disease in tomato plants, and therefore the harvest is not so good and the supply reduces, which causes an increase in the prices. तो यही सारे factors को समझने के बाद we can come to a better understanding of how our lives are shaped by these physical features of our earth. And once we understand what is causing the problem, only then we can come to solutions to those problems. Now, in order to study any subject, we have to make some meaningful classifications, and in terms of geography, we make these classifications in terms of various spheres. These spheres are toposphere, or what is the topography of a land, किस तरह के undulations हैं या फिर flat land है, that is what we mean when we refer to topography. Then there is geomorphology. What are the forces that shape earth, whether it is made of basaltic rocks or granitic rocks? What factors lead any place on earth to be composed of different kind of rocks, different kind of minerals and different surfaces? Then atmosphere. All of us are aware what atmosphere is. It is the air and other gases present. Air is actually a mixture of gases, so the presence of air and all the weather phenomena that occurs in atmosphere forms the part of this sphere, that is the atmosphere. Then pedosphere. Pedo comes from pedis or soil. So you must have studied in your lower classes that cotton can only be grown in black soil, and black soil is not available all over India, but only in limited parts of the western coast. Similarly, alluvial soil is good for wheat and rice cultivation, which is also not found all across India, but only in the Gangetic Plain and other parts of the coastal region. Then hydrosphere. Hydro having to do with water. So hydrosphere is that sphere of the earth which contains water. And interestingly, it is not just oceans and rivers and lakes, but it also comprises the water vapor present in the atmosphere, which leads to the formation of clouds because it has to do with water. So it will also form part of the hydrosphere. Then there are aquifers, groundwater table, which will also form part of the hydrosphere. Cryosphere, cryo having to do with frozen land. So cryosphere would be the zone of snow, ice, and permafrost. Permafrost, land that is frozen for over a year continuously, will be called permafrost. These are some of the terms that you can easily solve questions with. So you must be aware of these terms. Then, in order to start our study, let us first know our position in the universe. So the first thing we want to know is how the universe began. Now, the dominant theory which is accepted today is the Big Bang theory. But what we must know is that there was also the steady state theory. Steady state. Steady means which does not change. So there was a point in history when people believed that the universe has always been like this and it is unchanging. कभी भी बदलेगा नहीं, जैसा था वैसा ही है और वैसा ही रहेगा. But there were some observations which we are going to see shortly, which proved that the universe originated in a loud blast in a big bang, and that is where this name Big Bang theory comes from. Originally proposed by Georges Lemaitre and confirmed experimentally by Edwin Hubble, after whom the Hubble's telescope most of you would have heard this name. So this Hubble's telescope was named after Edwin Hubble. What did he observe? So first, imagine that you are standing somewhere on the road and there's a fast car or a bike approaching you. So now when the car is coming towards you, there would be a different sound that you hear compared to when the car is going away from you. Now, the reason why we are talking about a car in trying to explain Big Bang theory is because sounds are waves, and so are electromagnetic waves. Light that we see, visible light, वो भी एक electromagnetic wave है. इसीलिए the analogy I am giving you is that of a moving car. And what happens is that when these waves are coming towards you, traveling towards you, then with time, the source of these waves is moving towards you. So the wavelength progressively reduces and the sound you hear is different compared to what the source when the source is moving away, and you can easily surmise that the wavelength would increase, and this is what causes the difference in the sound. Now, when electromagnetic waves or light, that is how we observe universe in terms of visible light or infrared light or ultraviolet rays, X-rays. So what happens is that the universe, major points that we can see are stars. And stars, according to their temperature, they have different colors. So one easy experiment, one thing that you can observe at home is that when the flame of the gas, when it is burning completely, when a proper combustion is happening, when the gas is getting enough oxygen, then the flame is blue because the temperature, it represents the temperature which is quite high and proper combustion, complete combustion is happening. Therefore, the color is blue. But if you block the air passage that is going to the gas stove, then you'll see that the color changes to red and yellow. So this is happening because the temperature comes down, proper combustion, complete combustion is not happening, and therefore there's a change in temperature. Similarly, depending upon how much fuel a stars ka fuel, hydrogen and helium. So depending upon how much fuel a star is burning per second, its temperature is different, its color is different. Some stars like our sun will be a yellow star. Some stars which are much bigger than what our sun's size is, they will be blue stars and white stars. So what Edwin Hubble observed was that there was a difference in color of these stars compared to what was expected. And he observed red shifted stars. Red shifted. Why red shifted? Because light, visible light, is in a spectrum. It is composed of many different wavelengths, and therefore all of us have seen rainbows which has violet, indigo, and such other colors going up to red. Now all of this is electromagnetic radiation, therefore its speed will be the same as the speed of light, and speed is distance over time. So this lambda, a Greek letter, represents wavelength, and nu represents frequency. Frequency measured in per second and wavelength measured in meters. So meter per second gives you the speed, and this speed has to be same. Light speed 3 into 10 to the power 8 meters per second. Three into 10 to the power 8 meters per second. So now you can easily understand that if the wavelength increases, the frequency must come down proportionately in order for the speed to be constant. That is why if we plot frequency and wavelength, then the frequency will increase this way. Violet having the highest frequency, red having the lowest frequency. And therefore, the wavelength will increase this way. Violet having the lowest frequency and red having the highest wavelength. So now it is easy to understand that if the stars were all coming together, the space between them was decreasing, they were coming nearer to the source, to the observer, that is us, then we would observe violet shift. The color that we would witness would be towards violet, shifted towards violet. But if they were moving away, which they are, then the color that we observe is shifted towards red. Suppose the star was supposed to be a yellow star, then you would observe orange or red color. And this is how Edwin Hubble not experimentally, but through observation, confirmed that all the different stars, galaxies, they are moving away from each other. Just like if you take a balloon and see that the points or these two galaxies at a certain point were this far apart, then with expansion, they would be further away from each other. So this is how we got to know about, or we got to confirm the Big Bang theory, or the fact that the universe had originated in a loud bang where at one point of time all the matter was together. And what we say about Big Bang theory is that it was infinitely hot and infinitely small. Now, how is it possible that all of this matter that we see, it could have been present in a very tiny space. That is because of Einstein's equation E equals mc square. The most famous equation in the world. People often carry it on their t-shirts. But what this says is that energy can be converted into mass, and it would be energy released from every particle would be its mass times the velocity of light squared. So, since energy does not require any space, it was out of this energy that all the matter was created. The Milky Way, what you need to know is that it is a spiral galaxy. Spiral, that means it is something like this. The structure of Milky Way is like a spiral. Then let us come to our own home, that is the solar system. Solar system, the system that revolves around the sun. So there is the sun and 9 planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. These planets are called inner planets or rocky planets or terrestrial planets. Inner because they form the inner part of the solar system. Rocky because these are the only planets that have rocks, that have surfaces. Other planets are gas giants. They are made of gas. They do not have any solid surface like the Earth does. Then Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and then comes your Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Jupiter and Saturn are called gas giants. Even Uranus and Neptune are gas giants, but because their temperature is extremely cold, they have this name that is given to them: ice giants. Ice giants. So, inner planets, gas giants, and ice giants. What separates them is this dotted line represents the asteroid belt. Asteroid belt, that means rocks, those rocks which could not be big enough to be a planet, nor could they be small enough to be dust particles, somewhere in between, and therefore these form a belt, these form a continuous ring around the sun, which falls between Mars and Jupiter. And it was one such asteroid coming from the asteroid belt which led to the destruction of dinosaurs. That event is known as the KTPG event, which stands for Cretaceous Paleogene event. Cretaceous period और Paleogene period को के बीच में आने वाला, उसको define करने वाला ये event था, known as the Cretaceous Paleogene event. Now, a few more interesting things, like Saturn, its specific gravity, which is another name for density. So the specific gravity of Saturn is lower than that of water. And so this means that if there was a pool of water big enough in which you could submerge Saturn, then it would float and not sink in that pool of water. Another interesting fact to know about Venus is that Venus moves in a direction different to all other planets. If all other planets are going clockwise, then Venus is moving anti-clockwise. Why I'm saying if? Because if you observe from one side and then again take an observation from the other side, it will be clockwise as well as anti-clockwise. You can see this. If there is a clock moving this way, then if you observe it from behind, it will be anti-clockwise for you. Also, some current affairs related to this, if you were to know, then on Venus, you would find clouds of sulfuric acid, which we know as H2SO4. And another interesting fact is that there are 3 craters on Venus. 3 craters on Venus named after Indian women. The Girard crater, named after Jerusha Girard. Then there is the Anandi Gopal, or better known as the Joshi crater, after Anandi Gopal Joshi, the first doctor, so the first medical practitioner to have gone outside India and completed her degree in America. The Joshi crater, and the Medhavi crater. The Medhavi crater, named after Pandita Ramabai Medhavi, the first Sanskrit scholar to have earned the title of Pandita. So these are the 3 craters that have been named after Indian women present on Venus. Then you must also know that the Vikram crater is present on the moon, recently named after Vikram Sarabhai, the preeminent scientist of India, and also someone because of whose efforts IIM Ahmedabad was established. Then asteroids, we already know. Planetesimals, small rocky bodies that are going around the sun between Mars and Jupiter. Then we have meteors, meteorites, and meteoroids. Meteorites, those small rocks that survive the travel through Earth's atmosphere, because most of the rocks that travel, that enter Earth's atmosphere, burn up because of their small size. So the ones that are able to survive and reach Earth are called meteorites. Meteoroids, such bodies, such small rocks that enter the Earth, even though they burn up, they are called meteors, and both these bodies together are meteoroids. Different manifestations of the same phenomena: a rock entering Earth's atmosphere, some of them burn up because of their small size, some which are relatively bigger, they survive although they reduce in size, but still they are able to make it to Earth's surface, they are meteorites. Another important and interesting fact that you must know, like we just saw, Mercury and Venus, Earth and Mars, asteroid belt, then Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Now, these are so cold that temperatures go up to minus to 50 degrees Celsius. The sun's light is very weak. There is hardly any heat reaching these planets. So you can realize these are really, really cold. Not just cold, extremely cold. Mercury and Venus, they are extremely hot. So hot that even sulfuric acid which normally is liquid on Earth, even that exists as clouds. So now we can see that there is a sweet spot of temperature which exists on Earth as well as Mars, and this is the reason pioneers are trying to colonize Mars. So this sweet spot of temperature, known as the Goldilocks zone, based on a story of Goldilocks and the three bears, where the number three, everything in that story is in terms of three. There are three cups, three plates, and you can take an analogy that if you ask a not so intelligent robot to fill up your glass of water, the first time it might fill it very less, only pour a few drops, or it might fill the glass so much that it would overflow. So first time it would be very less, the next time it would be another extreme, very too much, very much, too much. But the third time it would learn and pour just enough that neither it would overflow nor would it be too less. And something like that happens in case of this temperature zone, that is the Goldilocks zone. The habitable zone, the zone where life can originate, that is known as the Goldilocks zone. The definition as such would be that zone of temperature of a star where water can exist in liquid form. So although water exists as ice as well as vapor, but the most dominant part of water exists as liquid. And why and how do we define this? Because it was in water that life originated, as we will shortly see. Then there are some other terms that we have seen recently. So Kuiper belt. Kuiper belt is that region which goes beyond Neptune, and it is in the Kuiper belt that Pluto comes. Kuiper belt, that region of circumstellar disk, circumstellar, that means going around the stellar, the star, and our star known as the sun. So this dust cloud going around the sun is known as the Kuiper belt. It is extremely cold, and that is where Pluto and other such small planetesimals exist. Then there is the Oort cloud. Oort cloud. So if we take a very large scale view, and if this were to be our sun, a small dot, then from 200 astronomical units extending up to 200,000 astronomical units would be this Oort cloud, basically the cloud of dust. What it represents is the final gravitational effect of the sun, after which its effect is zero. That is why it is all these dust particles that are still held, still captured by the sun, somewhat similar to how our exosphere, despite there not being any clear boundary, it is the exosphere that is the final place where where molecules of oxygen, nitrogen, argon, helium, other such gases exists. Almost negligible, but they do exist, and that is how you can take the analogy to understand Oort cloud. What is so special about the Oort cloud? It is the fact that it is home to billions of comets. For example, one of the most famous comets that we know of, the Halley's comet. So all these comets, bodies of ice and dust that revolve around the sun from far distances, and their approach is highly eccentric. Eccentricity is really high, so their path might be somewhat like this. As they approach, they form a comma-like shape, because the heat from the sun melts the ice. This tail is made up of melting ice. So that is what we know as comets. Now the formation of Earth as it is today. How did the Earth come to be? So the Earth, the hypothesis is known as nebular hypothesis. Nebular means, or nebulous, we use a word nebulous to uh, represent, to speak of things that are unclear. Nebulous concept, that means a concept which has still not taken a definite shape. And so nebula means a cloud of dust and gas, and it is in these clouds that stars are born, and it will mainly comprise of hydrogen and helium, which under the effect of gravity come together, start fusing, and therefore nuclear fusion begins. It is the birthplace of a star. It is the nebulas where stars are born. You can look up a very famous nebula whose pictures, very clear pictures, have been taken by the James Webb Space Telescope. They are called pillars of creation. You might be asked, this might be a direct question, that what are the pillars of creation? So this is a nebula. So how did the Earth form? Let us see. So it is a hypothesis. We have certainly not gone back to those times and witnessed it, but based on some observations, we come to the conclusion that initially this, when the sun starts in the nebula, it begins. So there's an accretionary disk. Accretion means coming together. Accretionary disk that is formed, and it is out of this disk that all other planets also start forming. What would have happened? So the dominant pathway inside the sun, nuclear fusion is taking place. Nuclear fusion, that means small nuclei coming together to form larger nuclei, and hydrogen, they combine to form helium, and also the cycle is named carbon cycle and carbon nitrogen cycle. That means the end of the process of fusion in sun leads to the formation of carbon and nitrogen majorly, and other trace elements as well, which we see on Earth as well, like gold, silver, iron, and other such elements. So it is because of this that you will see that most of the life on Earth is carbon based. Most of the most dominant gas in the atmosphere is the nitrogen gas. So all this was formed nowhere else but in the sun. So this is the beginning of Earth, and the event that led to the formation of moon. Moon formation, the event is known as Big Splat. Big Splat, उस process का नाम जिससे the birth of moon took place, a Mars-like planet, not Mars, because even Mars was not completely formed. It had not acquired its final shape. There was a lot of shedding of many rocks. There was a lot of collision between different planets. And one such collision with a Mars-like planet and Earth led to the Big Splat. And therefore, out of the Earth, what is today the Pacific Depression. Pacific Depression, the place where Pacific Ocean is situated, that place was formed and moon came out of it. The event was known as Big Splat. Evolution of the Earth. So Earth has existed for nearly about 4.8 billion years. Billion. 4.8 billion years. And the various eons, the longest division on the geological time scale, almost over. So any time period over a billion years is known as eon. And this was the first eon, Hadean, when even the Earth, the lithosphere, the rocky surface that we see today, the different continents, 7 continents, they did not exist. And this period was known as Hadean, named after the Greek god of underworld. So you can understand, when Earth itself was not formed, it was under. That period is known as, that eon is known as Hadean. Archean, that means the most archaic life form, the beginning of life. Life did not always exist. It was formed over billions of years through the formation of biomolecules, some specific conditions. So that period, that eon, it took over a billion years for the first biomolecule to form, and therefore it represents the most archaic, the time period when the most archaic life form was formed. Proterozoic, protero, proto, unformed, not completely formed. Zoic, the same root from which zoology, or the science, the study of animals. So the proto-animals, not completely animals, they were not well defined, and this was the eon in which first animals were formed. So you will see here, so this is the geological time scale. Geological time scale. Now, it has been removed from the NCERT books because of the revised syllabus, but in some old books, you will still find this geological time scale, and this is the 0 point. This is where origin of universe, Big Bang takes place 13.8 million years ago. Then we have going up. This is our present, and this is where we come from. So this is the flow of time. And as you can see, as we saw in the last slide, Hadean, Archean, and Proterozoic eons, all of these are together known as Precambrian supereon. Then we have the Paleozoic. Paleo means old. And then this Paleozoic era is further divided into Permian, Carboniferous, Devonian, Silurian, Ordovician, and Cambrian. Cambrian, the time when blue-green algae, the first autotrophic, auto, that means by itself, trophic means energy. So a kind of life form that was able to meet its own energy requirements was blue-green algae, formed during the Cambrian time period. Then the first life form, fish, formed during the Ordovician period. Silurian period, amphibians, and so on. Carboniferous, the time period during which carbon beds were formed, and that is what led to today's coal beds. Then we have the Triassic period, dominated by the dinosaur, Jurassic period, when they attain maturity, and the Cretaceous period, when the dinosaurs become extinct. And as you would remember, Cretaceous Paleogene event, and this is where that asteroid event takes place. This is important to know because it might be asked. It was one of the major events that define life as it is on Earth today. This occurred 65 million years ago. Then further, these are divided into periods. Periods, they are in millions of years. See, look now. Eon, several 100 million to 2 billion years. least and maximum. Then era, tens to hundreds of millions of years. Period, millions of years to tens of million years. Epoch, hundreds of thousands of years to millions of years. And age, thousands of years to millions of years. So that is what you would witness: epoch, period, era, and eon. And presently, we live in the Holocene epoch of the Quaternary period of the Cainozoic era of the present eon is known as the Phanerozoic eon. And as you would see, this has begun 570 million years ago. So it is still going on because an eon is nothing short of 1 billion years. So this is it for today. In the next class, we will continue from here, that is the composition of atmosphere. Till then, post your doubts, ask your questions, and please go through the video and make sure that you have mastered all the concepts. Thank you.